were made locally, they were purchased locally, they were used locally. And then with the advent of the Industrial Revolution, for the first time we were able to create truly mass markets out there. Where Henry Ford was the one that really put this all together. Of course, what was Henry Ford's famous phrase? Right, we could do it in unison if we practice, right? But you could have any color car you want as long as it was black. Right? That's really why black? Well, it's actually because Ford discovered that was the most efficient color to be able to put on a car. That's why they're all black. If red had been a more efficient color for whatever reasons, then all of his cars would have been red. It was a matter of coming down the old learning curve of cost versus volume and operating on the flat part of the curve. That's what he wanted to do. Operate on the flat part of the curve. But then along came a gentleman by the name of Alfred Sloan, who segmented that marketplace. When he put together General Motors, do any of you know Sloan's famous phrase? It's not quite as famous. You know that? He said he wanted to create a car for every purse and for every purpose. Right? By which he meant he segmented this so that he could create an entire factory, a mass production factory, a distribution, a research and development all around each of these different segments. From Cadillac to Oldsmobile, Pontiac, Chevrolet, and so on down the line. And every other industry, like they gained the precepts of mass production that Henry Ford created, they then gained the precepts of segmentation that Alfred Sloan put together. And over time, as more and more companies did that, these segments kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. In the 1980s, actually, at IBM, we had this phrase that the niches are the market, and that's where all the activity was going on. And then, what Stan Davis foresaw is that if you take that to its logical conclusion, what do you have? You have what we call mass customized markets, or what we called in the book Markets of One, where every customer is his own market. And that's key. Every customer is his own market. Every customer deserves to get exactly what he wants at a price he's willing to pay. And mass customization enables you to do that. I mean, I remember more possibilities, more permutations, and you even have possible customers. But how do you do that efficiently is that you work with each of these customers, understand what each individual wants and needs, and then you bring down those modules that that particular customer needs, and then you snap them together like Lego building bricks. Mass customization is not being everything to everybody, which is often the reaction that I got around that time. Oh, you're trying to be everything to everybody. No, mass customization is doing only and exactly what each one needs. It's getting rid of all of the waste in the system of doing things that people don't want and need. That's what mass customization is. So that you create a customer unique value chain. You create a customer unique value chain. Whether these are physical components, whether service activities, whether all of them your company provides, some of them that outsiders and suppliers are doing, you bring down and snap together like Lego building bricks the components that each individual person needs. That's what mass customization is. And one of the key components of that is that you have in here some sort of a design tool. A design tool for helping customers figure out what it is they want, because customers don't always know what they want. Even if they know it, they can't always articulate it. So you help them figure out what it is they want, and then get that information back into operation so you do different things for different customers. And there are many examples of great design tools. I know some of the talks that you're going to be hearing over the next couple of days are talk specifically about certain sorts of design tools that are being used. One of my favorite ones that's come out recently, and I know many of you are familiar with it, is LegoFactory.com. Right, Lego Factory, where you can go in and virtually design with Legos. So and they mass customize, the great example of mass customization of Legos itself. So you go in, you design your own piece, whatever it might be, brick by virtual brick. And then once you're done, Lego can analyze that and then offer to ship you the exact set of bricks that it takes to make your particular design. Not only that, if you really like that design, you can submit it to Lego, and their model makers take a look at it. If they really like that design as well, they offer to sell it to all of their other customers. Right? So lead user innovation, as Eric Von Eppel talks about, is what's going on. They're outsourcing at least part of their research and development to their customers, and there are a number of people today that are getting royalties from Lego because of what they created at LegoFactory.com. A great example of a design tool. Now I want to talk a little bit about a framework that really puts mass customization, I think, in perspective and gives a historical view to it. And it's a framework that I developed with a couple of professors, Andrew Boynton, who's now at Boston University actually, and Mark Victor at Vanderbilt. And what we recognized was that in the old days, before we started talking about mass customization, there were basically two choices that people had, that companies had, for how they organized themselves and how they did things. And that was invention and mass production. Invention is like, craft production or research and development or job shops, machine shops, where basically everything is dynamic. Every product you produce is different than every other product. You figure things out as you go along. That's the dynamic process change. So things are changing all the time. You never write down how you go about doing things. So even if you try and do the same thing, it comes out different every time. And you can do a lot of customization, but it costs a lot of money to be able to do it in that environment. Or you can be a mass producer. Mass production is where you have stable product change and stable process change. So here's where you're trying to do the same thing over and over and over again and produce a standardized product that is the same every time. That's the basis of mass production. Now these two things are related in that you have the activities of development that allow you to take an idea that has to come from invention. You can't develop anything new in a mass production factory. That's where people are asked to check their brains in at the door. But you develop new ideas, you can bring it down, develop those ideas through product and process development, and then produce it for the masses. And we used to be able to think that this was the only choice you had. You had to be either invention or mass production. It was most famously put by Michael Porter, who said you can be either low cost or high differentiation. And if you try and do both, you're going to get stuck in the middle, was his phrase. You get stuck in the middle. Well, the reason is for that is because we really coupled together these two things. We coupled together product change and process change. And said that if you wanted to do different things, you had to have dynamic product and dynamic process change. If you wanted to have low cost, you had to have stable product change and stable process change. But that's not true. That's not true. You can break these apart and begin to think about the different ways to organize, and then you get basically 4 different possibilities of organizing your business. At the top, of course, up here is invention. Again, dynamic product change, dynamic process change. Where's mass production? Lower left, right? It's a search for stability. And again, it's the activities of development that take you from one to the other. Well, the first move was not to mass customization. The first move was what the Japanese did. Started back in the late 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. Where they started working on total quality management, started working on Kaizen, at MIT what we call lean production. And what that was really a shift over here. A shift over here to this box, where instead of having the same process being done over and over and over again, they allowed their people to actually think about the process, to apply what was often very deep process knowledge to what they were doing so that they could get better and better and better at it. So that they were dynamically enhancing the process. They were ideally continuously enhancing the process. So continuous improvement, or again, lean production or total quality management, whatever you want to call it, was that next business model. And I can remember the days, and some of you probably can too, when as American manufacturers in particular, we looked at what Japanese were doing, like Toyota and all those folks, and we said, they can't do that. I mean, literally our reaction was, they can't do that. They can't possibly have both high quality and low cost in the way they did. That's because we viewed it as this either-or world. And they went to a new model based on dynamic process improvement. Well, then how do they do that? Well, basically, think about invention. Academics use the term organic for the organization. It's like an organism where there's all this stuff going on in here, but again, none of it's structured, none of it's written down. You do whatever it takes to get the job done. When it came time to develop that for mass production, you ended up with organizations that look like this. Very hierarchical, very functional. We talk about functional silos and how bad those are today. But they aren't bad if what you want to do is mass produce. And there are still industries where mass producers can be successful.